and welcome to Ask Are talking about a very important topic. We are going to be talking about nanny taxes. I have with me here Miss Rachel Lawrence, and she is going to introduce herself while there we go. Hi, Kimberly and Julia, how are you? I'm going to let Rachel introduce herself and then we'll get started.
Hi, I'm Rachel Lawrence. I'm with Homework Solutions. I'm the agency partner specialist here, which basically means I'm our liaison to the nanny industry. I have over 15 years of history in the nanny industry and been a nanny employer, been a nanny, worked for INA, worked for placement agencies. So come at it from a lot of different angles, and hopefully that helps me talk to everyone in our industry.
Yay! So you have a lot of nanny stuff going on. And that's a good thing. And I know this is a big one for a lot of some nannies get paid on the table off the books, some nannies get paid on the books. But my first question is about being an independent contractor. What is the rule / law about being an independent contractor?
Well, you're not the only person that gets this question. It is a big question in the nanny industry. It's almost a blanket statement that a nanny is always the employee of the family she works for. There are very, very, very few exceptions to this. They have to do with nannies that have staff underneath them that they have hiring and firing rights over and those sort of things. Otherwise, they have to be an hourly employee of the family they work for unless they have their own business or something like that, which some NCSs do, in all fairness, have a business entity that they have set up. But almost always a nanny is the employee of the family she works for.
Okay. So the nanny is the
We have a little bit of a delay, I think. So I'm going to recap because I think that's what you're doing. Yes, the nanny is the employee of the family she works for per federal law. There's actually a document called IRS 926 that actually spells all this out. It's not very interesting to read. We have much better resources on it. If anyone needs one to send out to their employer, we're happy to give you a link to a quick article, maybe a 1-2 minute read that goes over the basis of why it is. But yes, always the employee of the family she works for, almost without exception. Oh no, Angela disappeared. Let's see if we can get back on track. I'm sure Angela's got the tech going in the back. There she is.
Yes, I'm here. I have no clue what just happened, but moving right along.
Live TV. This is how it goes.
Live TV, you can't do it. I promise you. I'm in a new house. So tripods off of this internet is kind of crazy. So you all just hang in there with us. I promise you, we'll get this done. I am recording this webinar. So if it doesn't go live on Facebook, I will place the recording on Facebook Live so that you can see the whole thing. Okay? All right. Now, as we were saying, that you can post that article. Oh, okay. I was reading what Kimberly said. So now that we know that nannies are not independent contractors, married, what is when we file our taxes? Because I know some people file single, head of household. Some people file single, period. Some people file jointly, and some people file jointly, married filing separately. Yeah, I think I got them all.
I think you did too.
So
It lagged a little bit, but yes, everybody's different tax filing status.
okay, so if we are the head of household and we're married,
Angela, we keep lagging, but I think I know where you're going. So I'm going to hit the highlights of it. So basically, there are different ways people file their taxes. When you file your 1040, which is an individual tax form, you can tell the government a little bit about who you are. Maybe you're single, meaning you're not married and you are earning an income and filing just by yourself. There is also married filing jointly, which is what most married people file, which does have some tax benefit to it. There's also married filing separately. There are reasons that sometimes people do this that are very good reasons. Perhaps the spouse has a business and they want to keep those things very separate from their household, certainly fine. And then head of household gets a little sticky. There's actually a new tax form this year, which is called a W-4. We've always had a W-4, but there's a new version of it this year, which tells your employer how to withhold your taxes through your paychecks throughout the year. And it makes a distinction about head of household. So this is only if no one else in the house is working. It's a little different. Hitting on the W-4 in particular, that's new this year for 2020. Anyone who's starting a new job in 2020 has to fill out the new W-4 form. Anyone who wants to change their tax withholdings can fill out the new 2020 W-4 form as well. If one person in your household fills this out, but both of you work, I would strongly recommend as a best practice that you both fill it out. Basically, the old form is apples and the new form is oranges. And so you want everyone in your household to be using either all apples or all oranges, because what you're doing is you're paying towards your tax obligation throughout the year. With the old form, you took most of your deductions, like your children, on your end of year form. And now they're trying to build that more into the course of the year. So you are actually accounting for things like your dependents up front. And so the theory is that you will keep more money in your pocket throughout the year with the new form. So you can see that you wouldn't want your spouse using the sort of apples version where you settled that up at the end of the year, and you using the oranges version where you are sort of working towards that obligation throughout the year. Just best practice to sync up. I know I did it for myself and my husband to see what the differences are, just for playing around with it so I could explain it to other people. And for myself and my husband, it was definitely more money in our pocket for us each to fill out the new form, even though neither of us has to, because neither of us started a new job in 2020. And Angela, I think you disappeared. So I'll hit some more highlights of what's new in 2020 so that the audience, if they can see us, assuming the streaming is still working on that side, have something to sort of fill the air. So some things that are new in 2020 are that the tax threshold for your base wages went up just slightly. So the federal threshold now is $2,200. Some other things that affect nannies that changed: the gas mileage reimbursement rate actually slightly went down. It's 57.5 cents per mile now. Or for mass transit pass, it's actually $270 that an employer can reimburse a nanny for her mass transit pass. Other things that we saw change in 2020 were healthcare. Oh, I think Angela's back. We have a picture, Angela, but we don't hear you yet. I can see you.
Yay!
I just took
Finally
over your
come back.
show while you were gone.
I have no clue what just happened. Again, I am new on this, and it just totally just it didn't like me for a minute, but we're gonna get this together. Hi, everybody. I'm back. Hopefully, you can see me. Okay, now, so where did you leave off? I can
Well,
see you on Facebook
since I,
Live.
since I stole your show, I just started going over things that we've seen that changed in 2020, like
Okay, that's
reimbursement
great too.
7.5 cents this year.
Really? All
It
right.
is.
Okay, so now, do we have any questions from our audience? Okay, so I know one of the biggest questions in the past has been, how do you file your taxes if you are paid off the books, under the table? How do you file your taxes?
Sure. So, sort of depends on where you want to go with that. If you were given a 1099 and you realize now that that wasn't the best course of action, I would start with talking to your employer or former employer and educating them as to what you realize now should have been the right way for them to handle that. Hopefully, they will see the light on that and give you a different document for you to file. But if that isn't the case and they say no, it's the 1099, that's what we're doing, there is a form, and I can certainly provide you with links, Angela, where a nanny could say one of two things. I wasn't given any form at all, and these are the wages that I should have been an employee for. Two, I was given a 1099, which I think is the wrong document. So there are avenues for a nanny to correct that without the assistance of her employer. But of course, particularly if it's still your employer, it's always advantageous to try to bring that up in conversation before you file documents that might start into motion an uncomfortable situation for your employer. But so certainly, and like I said, very occasionally there is the chance that a newborn care specialist or someone really does fall into this other category, but it's very rare. And they file business taxes, which are completely different than personal income taxes. So it's not something that you're going to see come into play. A nanny should always, like I said, just talk to her employer. She feels like a mistake was made. Oops, gosh, I didn't know this was supposed to be on the books. They can work together to figure out what the best cause of action is for wages that were already paid to fix that situation. Or if she was given a 1099, again, she can educate the employer that she now realizes shouldn't have been that way and wasn't the right form. And again, they can work together to figure out what the best course of action is to correct those already paid wages, get up to speed. And this is a new year. Start the right way now. Moving forward to make sure that you're filling out a W-4 and an I-9, and this is your employer, they're paying their taxes, you're paying yours, and then come January 2021, you'll get that W-2 the way you're supposed to, and it will be better for everyone involved.
Exactly. I was involved in a case where I got a 1099 and no taxes were taken out. And it came the time they were having another baby. And long story short, I called the Department of Labor to find out what the going rate was for the nanny, because I did some research, and it said talk to the Department of Labor. The Department of Labor asked me who they were. They asked me how many hours I worked. They told me that I was an hourly worker. They told me that I was not supposed to be on salary. They told me basically they wanted to stick it to my employers. And I said, "Oh, thank you very much," and I hung up the phone. So I went to my employers and I told them about the phone call that I had with the Department of Labor, what they told me. And it turns out that they told their accountant that I was the nanny but the accountant assumed that I was a live-in and not a live-out. And they didn't take taxes out. It was a whole big thing. Anyway, they ended up owing me $5,000 in back payment, and they ended up paying extra taxes because they hadn't paid my taxes from before. So it was a big commotion. We got through it, but it could have gone the other way if I had given them their name and phone number and information. Yeah, this would have been a whole nother story. So be sure you talk to your employer first before you hand out information. They're asking questions innocently asking questions to find out because, IRS wants their money from you and from them. And they want all of it. And they're quick to take it and slow to give it back. I'm just saying.
It's true. People mostly do this not out of malice. It's out of
Right.
misunderstanding and misinformation, being totally unaware it even exists,
Right.
which is a big part of our mission, right? A big part of our mission is education. We even go to CPA conferences and teach accountants how to do this because a lot of accountants don't realize how to do things. That's the perfect example. A live-in, depending on your state, does or doesn't get overtime and those sort of things. But a lot of them understand corporate payroll. They don't understand household payroll, which are different. And so they're doing what they think is right by their clients because they're using corporate laws and they assume it's the same thing. But there are these nuances that are not the same thing. And that's where people get into trouble. So we try to go teach tax professionals as well as our nannies. Our nannies are some of our biggest advocates and educators because they'll take information that we provided them on a personal level or at a conference, and they'll go educate a potential employer, which sometimes gets them that job over another candidate because they're the professional that's teaching the employer, or it allows them to go into one of these sticky situations and navigate it beautifully, where the family is so thankful that they didn't just go to the authority, whoever that is, the state, the Fed, whoever happens to have the issue, right? The labor department, depending on what the violation is. And they're so thankful that their nanny cared about them and said, listen, I understand we've made a mistake and I don't want to stick it to you. I want us to fix it. I want us to do better.
Right. So please, please talk to your employer. I know that Homework Solutions has some articles about this. They have all kinds, and it's in, I think you all have one in Spanish too, don't you?
We do. We have a whole series in Spanish, and we have a whole series from the nanny's perspective and a whole series from the families. So a little bit of everything for everyone.
A little bit of everything. So if you look up homeworksolutions.com and go to their information page, you can find all this information that we're talking about right now. And you can print it off or send it via email to your employer and say, this is what I found and this is the mistake that I thought we should talk about this. There's also in my research, you can go to the federal the labor laws for domestic workers, and there's articles on that. You can present that. That's what I present. I didn't know anything about Homework Solutions back then. All I knew was what the Labor Department was telling me, and this was back in 2002. So that was 18 years ago. It was my first nanny job. I was their first nanny, so we were all learning together. So people make mistakes, and even though they were great employers and they were great business-minded people, they took it to the accountant, and the accountant, did what he was supposed to do. But because we are in a different bracket, it takes someone, like Rachel said, it takes someone knowing how a nanny is supposed to be taxed and what she's supposed to be, what tax bracket and how to follow those tax laws for a nanny or domestic worker. It takes someone knowing all that information in order to get everything right. Because the last thing you want is for the IRS to come after you because you didn't get it right, because they didn't get it right, and because their accountant didn't get it right. And that's why I'm here, to get you on the right track, on the right path, so you all can work it together. And that way you won't be getting them in trouble when you file your taxes. And because they will look at your taxes, see your 1099, see that you're a domestic worker, and they will go back after them. So please, please, please.
There's big crackdown in California right now that they have warned people, New Jersey too, that they have said, listen, we know that some people have been misclassifying people as independent contractors or 1099 or self-employed, or however you want to phrase that. Take a look at your employee and make sure that you are distinguishing them correctly as a true independent contractor or adjusting them to being an employee, because they're sort of giving you fair warning that the gloves are off at this point.
Uh-oh. You know, IRS don't play.
No, they don't. Death and taxes, so they say.
So now, what is the threshold? If I work for one family, how much money can I make from that one family before I have to file taxes on that money?
A lot of people, they don't think about taxes in parts. They think about taxes as one thing. There are different taxes that are assessed on payroll, and each tax has its own rules. So that threshold that we talked about with the $2,200 of the federal threshold for 2020, that is the threshold where you and your employer would owe FICA taxes, which are Social Security and Medicare. That doesn't mean that you don't owe income taxes on anything else at a state level, at a federal level, at a local level. So people get confused with that number. They think it's the stop all and all be all number of anything having to do with taxes. But for instance, an employer in most states has a state obligation for unemployment around $1,000. Again, states vary, but generally speaking, if an employer pays an employee or multiple employees collectively $1,000 in a quarter, which goes pretty fast in the nanny industry, right? They need to be in touch with the unemployment division of their state and paying state unemployment. Even if they, maybe they have a really heavy quarter and they don't ever meet that federal threshold, it doesn't mean they didn't meet a state one on a quarterly level. So really, they all work independently to some extent from one another. So it's not as blanket of a statement as saying $2,200 is the line, you're either above it or below it. There are several components that go into it. So that's why we always recommend, if you have questions, call us. This is literally what I do every day. I'm happy to talk through this stuff with nannies. You can call my direct line and I'll talk to you. If you're going to start a new job and you want to know how much of a gross salary you need to be able to take home what you know is your net requirement, call me. If you have a question about, gosh, I live in New York City, is there any kind of local tax versus, Albuquerque, New Mexico, those sort of things, we can help tell you what it is for your specific area, because taxes can be intimidating, of course, and each location has its own rules. Each state, to some extent, even counties and cities have their own rules. So call us, we'll help you. You're not alone.
Right. I know even the overtime pay is different. And I know, like in California, it's like an 8-hour day. And after 8 hours, it's considered overtime. So you are supposed to get a time and a half. Mm-hmm. There's a city up northeast. All right, is it New York, New Jersey? Their tax laws are different too than the taxes that are in the rest of the United States. Also, there are states that don't have a state tax, so right. You don't have to pay a state tax. Luckily, Texas is one of those states. So have to worry about a federal tax. Although when I go shopping, trust me, these city taxes, mm, they make up for it. I promise you that.
They get
make
it
up.
somewhere.
They
It's
get it.
free.
And to drive in Texas, everything is a toll road. So they're going to get you coming or get you going one way or another. We may not have a state tax, but we do have a tax on driving our cars. And they don't have, some of the cities do not have the best city transportation. The city that I live in now, trust me, you're going to drive your car.
Well,
That's it.
and that's the
You
thing
gotta
too.
drive your car.
We're doing a lot this year talking to nannies about total compensation packages and how to build things like transit passes into their total compensation package, where both the nanny and the family are saving tax money on health insurance reimbursements, transportation reimbursements, education reimbursements. Those sort of things can all be built into this total compensation package. In addition to things like the sick leave and the paid time off and vacation that, again, some jurisdictions require by law, others don't, so that they are getting a whole package and being recognized as the professional that they are, while still saying to the family, look, this is great for you too. Let's build this into my compensation package. And guess what? You're not taxed on this $5,000 you're providing through a QSARA health reimbursement benefit to me, and neither am I. So it's a win-win for everyone when you'll look at things as a whole and take all of those little pieces and work them together. That is the one win on the tax, right? That is where you can sort of, it's not cheating the system, but it kind of feels like it, right? That you are doing everything by the books. Your employer is setting up this health reimbursement arrangement for you and reimbursing you for gas and part of your cell phone and part of your education expenses and things. And they end up with a nanny who loves their package, who doesn't feel like her commute is breaking the bank, who feels like she can use her vacation time to go to do educational things or to take a class in the evenings that benefits their family. And everybody wins on the tax advantage. So.
Great. I know as an independent contractor, there are things that, everybody sees us as, oh, y'all making all that money. Y'all making all that money. I said, you don't see the wear and tear on the car. You don't see the miles that we drive back and forth, the lack of sleep that we don't. And trust me, it is the nanny versus the NCS. They both have benefits. I had benefits in my contract where I was reimbursed because I used my car to transport the kids back and forth to school. I had mileage reimbursement for the kids. Now, there were some families that did not want to give me mileage reimbursement, but I was able to subtract it off of my taxes. And that's one of the things that a lot of nannies don't know is you can, if you're using your vehicle, not from home to work, but once you get to work and you're driving that child around to this activity, to that activity, and mom and dad are not reimbursing you for those miles that you are putting on your car, you can take them off your taxes. Now, it pretty much, in my case, it just kind of lowers my tax bracket, but it does take a lot off of your, depending on the mileage for last year. Yeah, last year, not this year. Depending on the mileage, it does take some of that, it does relieve some of that tax that you might have to pay off of there. So, but it,
Well, and the standard has gone up so much that a lot of people aren't itemizing anymore. They are taking what's called the standard deduction. It does make the taxes a little easier too. So, that is another way that a nanny can go to a family and say, listen, I prefer to take a standard deduction. Can we talk about mileage reimbursement? This is something where you're giving me extra compensation, as it feels to me, to compensate for the wear and tear on my car and my gas mileage. It feels like a benefit to me, where I don't have to then keep track of all of this and itemize and do all of these things. It's a win-win for everyone. They aren't taxed on this amount, and their nanny's not taxed on it either. She's taking a standard deduction, which is so much easier for her.
Yes, it is.
And you can have these conversations. It's one of the things that we're trying to help, fortify in the industry, saying, listen, these are open doors. You can choose to talk about these or not talk about these, or only some of these are important to you. That's fine. But let us teach you about, this gamut of options you have. You can figure out what personally fits you or the family you're applying with, or what have you, because maybe you don't live somewhere where you drive, or whatever that scenario is, where you can walk into an interview or even into your current situation and have those conversations that you said were so important and that your employer was so thankful that you had with them, where you're armed with the information, and in a nice way you can say, listen, this is a win for me, but it's also a win for you. Or, let's talk about this versus that. Maybe instead of $40,000 in compensation at a wage for wages, I want $35,000 in wages and $5,000 in a healthcare reimbursement. Well, now both of us are only being taxed on $35,000, but I'm getting $5,000 in health insurance reimbursement. So I'm still at that total compensation of $40,000, but both of us are paying less in taxes. Just having this knowledge opens up so many more conversation places, because we all know families often are on a budget, whether they have billions of dollars or they're just scraping by. Everyone has a budget, and being able to say, listen, I don't want to exceed your budget. I just want to move some apples from one basket to the other, and we all win, shows them what a professional you are, shows them how educated you are. And speaking personally, I can't think of anything I wanted more in my nannies when I hired them than someone I could tell knew their stuff. They weren't afraid to talk to me so that we could work things out, because communication is such a huge part of a nanny family team. And the same when I was a nanny, to have employers that I knew from interview stage were receptive to me providing information and guidance, and that we could have an open conversation. It wasn't just what they said was the law. All these things made such a better relationship, both when I was the nanny and when I was the employer.
Okay. Now, my next question for you is, I know nannies that are getting the W-2, when is the cutoff date that they should have their W-2s in hand?
Sure. So that's a big question right now, right? We are in the throes of tax season, which for most people, in our office is a longer period of time, and comes with a few more hoops. But for the average person doing their taxes, those important days are, when do I get my W-2? When do I file? Those sort of things. So today is the first day you could file your taxes. You couldn't file them before today. So yay, happy tax day. Happy first tax day, I guess I should say.
First tax day.
The last day you can do it is April 15th, which most people know, although sometimes if that falls on a Sunday and things, they do adjust the day, but it's the 15th of April this year. And then the all pressing question, when do I get my W-2? So your employers have till the 31st to prepare them and get them on their way to you. So, drop them in the mail, those sort of things. For us, people that use our company, our nannies are getting a paper copy and then an electronic one also. So sometimes that electronic one gets to them a little faster through their portal than maybe the postal system. But you have to wait just a little while longer, everyone. The 31st is the deadline.
So the 31st is the deadline to get them in the mail, not necessarily to have them in your hand.
Right. So, theoretically, I could drop one in the mail today, and depending on the postal system and the weather and everything else, right? It could take a little bit longer. So yes, they have till the 31st to get them done, I guess is how I will phrase that, and on their way to you.
Okay. Okay. Because I know I had an employer once. They were a very sweet family, but it was like that proverbial the check is in the mail.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, I'm trying to get this done. I'm trying because I know that this was when my kids were young. And
Mhm.
I know, okay, so I'm waiting on my refund so that I can do this, and this. I had that money all planned out. I'm like, hurry up, people. Come on. I'm on a timeline too. So it when if they don't have it by say the 15th of February.
Yes. Good. That's a good plan. If you don't have it in hand by the 15th, you have given all of the possible realistic complications time to work themselves out. And if you don't have one by the 15th, you might just tap your employer on the shoulder and say, gosh, I'm sure you put that in the mail for me instead of handing it to me, or if it was a former employer and the mail's the only option. I haven't gotten it. Could we try again? And often, this is followed by something like, oh, I meant to ask my accountant about that, etc. But it never hurts to remind them after the 15th. And, everybody has their moments, but hopefully you got it already.
Yes, hopefully you got it. So after we get our W-2s, I know I'm looking at a comment. Kimberly Brown, she says she goes to H&R Block because she's not paying for the mess up because she lives in New Jersey. Um, so she said New Jersey is notorious for filing wrong. Now, can we file our taxes on our own? Is it simple to file our taxes on our own, or should we go to someone who really knows what they're doing?
That really depends on who you are.
Okay.
If you, I don't know, I'm going to think of what I think is probably the easiest scenario. You have one job, you're single, you don't have any kids. I'm trying to think of other complicating factors. You have your W-2 in hand, not that 1099, all of those sort of things. Then yes, theoretically, this is easy, right? This is why TurboTax and I think Credit Karma did a free one last year. I don't know if it's free this year still. You can file them. It's pretty easy. Once you start getting into itemizing, or you have a couple jobs, your spouse has a couple jobs, you have a couple kids, you've got a mortgage, you've got all of these other things, then yes, the more layers you build into it, the less easy it is. That's not to say you couldn't do it yourself. I know you nannies are bright. I'm around you all the time. I know that you're smart and can do this, but you just may not want to. It ends up being where you have to collect a lot of things and you have to think through different scenarios, and it just ends up being a time sink to some extent. So if you have a complicated situation, I agree. Sometimes it is just nice to hand it over to somebody else who understands all the ins and outs, can maybe see things that you can't that are beneficial to you. H&R Block got absolutely nothing against you, and New Jersey can be complicated. So, yes, there's good reason to use a professional, but it also shouldn't be blanket statement scary, right? If you have a pretty simple situation, the TurboTaxes, the Credit Karmas of the world are an option for you.
Okay. So once we get our taxes done, and once we get once we get our W-2s,
Mm-hmm.
for those who are get W-2s, we go to H&R Block and all of that. Now, what about we've been paid under the table? What if we don't file our taxes?
Yes.
Because we've been paid under the table and we have not come to a compromise with the parents. on getting the W-2, and because I know that's a big issue right now. Nannies want to be paid on the books so they can get all the benefits, like you said, the unemployment tax, the Social Security, because if you don't pay the Social Security by the time you get to 64, 65, retirement age, you're going to get zero
Correct.
back. So what if we're not filing taxes because of, the being paid under the table, and, are just running away from paying the taxes, period.
Like most things that we run away from in life, whatever that might be, there's going to be a residual effect. I'm not going to lie to you and say that the IRS is going to knock on each one of their doors. It's not necessarily going to happen. It's not necessarily not going to happen either. So whenever you do something like this, it's like speeding. Sometimes you get caught and sometimes you don't. If you get caught, it's not good, right? They're gonna dig into, gosh, now that we look at this, you haven't seemed to have had employment for the last 5 years. That gives us pause. We're now going to dig a little deeper. And the penalties and interest that you're gonna pay aren't worth the risk. And like Angela said, the other thing that isn't worth the risk that is definite is you definitely have not been paying, or more accurately, your employer has not been paying into the unemployment system. So our jobs as nannies are terminal. Kids grow up. We will have more than one employer in our lifetime, almost without exception. There are very few nannies that work that lifetime job. So at some point, you're probably going to need to dive into the unemployment system. And that's only available to you if you've been paying into, if your employer's been paying into it. That being said, a nanny can go file for unemployment. And just like we mentioned those forms before, can sort of raise the flag and say that this wasn't happening, and the employer can be sort of on the hook for that. But you don't want that to happen, right? There goes your reference, there goes everything, because now they're mad. So being on the books with the unemployment, such a benefit. We all are going to need it at some point. I needed it when I was a nanny. I talk to people every day that need it. Also, as mentioned by Angela, Social Security, you have to pay 40 quarters into the Social Security Administration. That's 10 years. That's what they have to use that as your base to assess how much you get. And it's based over time, right? It's sort of like a sliding scale. It depends how much you made, depends how much you get, and they're going to divide it out based on that. So pay though as long as you can. Make that wage base large, because maybe one job paid a little less than the other. So having all of them on the books takes the whole picture into account, so that when you do want to retire, you get the highest benefit that you deserve. And again, your employers, you don't want to put your employers at risk either. Nobody wants that. So it's just a win for everyone. That being said, there's no better time to start than now. Don't say, well, I've never done it and I'm afraid. Change now. 2020 is that year for you. Go to your employer, say, gosh, I didn't realize we were doing it wrong. Let's do better. Here's my plan, and get everyone on board. And start now. Start paying towards that Social Security now. Start making sure you can claim unemployment later. Stop staying up at night worrying about whether or not the IRS is going to pull your file. You can make the change now and move forward in your career.
Right. Now, I have another question, simply because it has happened to me. I work for several families who have a child care plan within their job. So they asked me to sign this form that says we paid her this amount of money to take care of our children for this amount of time, so they get reimbursed for child care.
Right.
Now, they did not take my Social Security number. and there was no taxes taken out of that money. So now, because I have run a business for so long, I took the loss on that one. And I ended up paying for it instead of getting them in trouble. But for those of us who cannot take that loss, what do we do in that situation where they have their pre-tax, I think it's pre-tax,
Dependent care account.
dependent care. Yes. What do we do when we sign these pieces of paper and saying that we took care of their kids and they give us money? That's all true. But when we go to file, we have nothing that says that they took taxes out or paid anything on it because it came through their job.
Right. So again, this piece of paper should be one more tap on the shoulder saying, listen, we aren't doing this right. We really, if we want everybody to get their advantage, including you being able to use your flexible spending account at work, we need to do this the whole right way, not pieces of it.
Mhm.
And we need to take this legal, go on the books, all those sort of things, so that a parent can use those tax advantages. And you'll have your tax advantages, and you'll have the things that you're building towards for your future. So that should be, in my opinion, sort of one more flag that says, listen, hint, hint, nod, nod, we should fix this. But with regard to if a parent can use that for a nanny who's being paid legally on the books correctly, absolutely, in most cases they can. They should go to their HR department and find out what they need to provide the HR department with in order to be able to get that reimbursement. We do those sort of reports for people all the time because each HR department sometimes has, this one thing they need, or maybe some are, I don't want to say more lax, but more standardized. And so the documents we already produce will satisfy that. But if not, we'll tweak a report or something to show, not to show inaccurate information, but to show a broader picture of the information so that the HR department feels that they've had all their boxes checked for making sure this person was paid legally and that this was for care of a dependent while they were at work, as opposed to something else, some other expenditure. So those documents that HR departments put out are a safeguard for them to make sure that this money is really being used for what they say it is. And mostly speaking of a regular payroll document will suffice. But like I said, some are more picky than others. And so we'll have a client come to us and say, my HR department kicked this back at me. What else can you give me? They say it has to have whatever on it, the nanny's name or a certain paid date or something like that. And we will look back through our documents and make sure that they have what they need.
Okay. Now, you were telling me. Okay, my last question, and then I'll let you have your closing remarks. What about when parents pay you under the books and then come tax time, they claim you that they paid you a certain amount of money for childcare, but you don't file?
Okay, so they give you a W-2, and
No,
you.
they didn't pay you on the books.
Okay,
They just paid you straight out, and they said, "Okay, here you go. This is your money." Okay, so now it's tax time, and they want to. They ask you for your name and all your information, your address, and all this stuff. They probably already have that information from when you came on at the interview and all that. And they claim that they paid you X amount of dollars, but because you're being paid on the books, off the books, you don't file.
Right. So the miscommunication between the two halves.
Right. So how does a nanny handle that? Because I know that's going to send up a red flag somewhere. If the parents file in your name saying that you did this, but you don't file, and all of a sudden Where's all this? You said they said you had income, but you're not showing any income.
Right. So usually this happens in a miscommunication scenario where everyone thought they were on the same page. This is my plug for a work agreement. We certainly have one if you need one on our website, but we all learn from past things, right, Angela? Myself
Right.
included in my nanny career. So we learn and we do better. Memorialize in your work agreement that you are their employee and they are withholding taxes, whether that's just the mandated FICA taxes or whether they are going to withhold your income taxes as well, so that you understand if they've already done that for you or whether you need to make quarterly payments on your own for the income tax portion, not the FICA portion, which only an employer can remit to the government. You can't remit FICA yourself. But let's say that yes, you get to the end of the year and you thought, okay, this family chose to pay me under the table. I accepted this at the time. I didn't know any better, whatever the scenario was. I didn't know I should ask to be an employee. I just thought this was how it worked. And you get to the end of the year and you find out somehow that this family is planning to give you, I don't know, like the 1099, for instance, to show that they paid you. You're in a spot. But so were they. You're in equally the same spot. So again, the conversation should be the same. Because if a family says, oh, we're going to 1099 you, we didn't talk to you about it all year, but here you go, here's your 1099, they aren't off the hook. You can still file the form that says, oops, the people I work for mistakenly gave me a 1099 and I should have been a W-2 employee. So again, best case scenario, we go into this and have a conversation, say, gosh, we didn't communicate well. This didn't go how either of us planned. Here's the information I have about how we should have set it up. How can we get there? Because you don't want it to end up where this family 1099 you and you owe all these extra taxes. And you don't want to end up where you file this form and get the family in trouble. Everybody loses in either of those scenarios. So to go back to family and say, whoops, we work really well in a team for childcare. Let's work really well together on this and resolve the problem.
Good, good. I said that was my last question, but this is going to be my last question. Are parents responsible for paying federal and state taxes, or are they only responsible for paying the FICA part of your taxes?
Okay, so by law, they are on the hook for FICA taxes. The most usual way this plays out is they pay half of those. Again, FICA is Social Security and Medicare, so that we don't get too into lingo here. So they are on the hook for remitting these to the government. This usually plays out in the employer paying half and the employer removing your half from your wages. And then they take both halves and they give it over to the government and everybody has met their obligation. This is the minimum obligation of an employer. You certainly end up with the occasional scenario where the employer pays both halves and doesn't deduct the 7.65% from the nanny's check. But this is the minimum they have to do for the tax portion. I'm not talking about the unemployment portion because we've sort of already covered that they probably have unemployment obligations also. But then as far as the nanny's income taxes go, either party can opt out of these being withheld from a check. So an employer can say, no, I don't want to deal with this. You figure out that part. I'll deduct your FICA and remit it, or I'll pay both halves and remit it. Your income taxes, I don't want to do it. Personally, I strongly advise employers against this because it's the first issue that's going to come down the road, because now their nanny has this whole other thing she has to do. And at the end of the year, she may owe this big amount. And I always tell employers, you don't want to do this. This is going to deteriorate your relationship. But so the best case scenario, the employer is using the W-4 we talked about, where you tell them how to withhold, and they are doing that for you, remitting it on your behalf and giving you this W-2 that reflects all of this. If an employer doesn't withhold, they say no, or even a nanny can fill out her W-4 to reflect that she does not wish to have her taxes withheld, then the nanny is responsible for remitting the income taxes herself. Generally speaking, on the state and federal level, this is going to be quarterly. It's not tremendously difficult. It's something you're going to have to do. They're called 1040 ES payments. We're actually, literally, it's sort of funny you asked this. We're literally writing an article about this today to release to our nannies and other household employees on, what this means and how to go about it. But again, best case scenario, if your employer says, I don't want to do that, ask why. Because they're already going to be doing the FICA portion. Let's talk that through and get to a point where hopefully they can do the other portion for you as well, so that you don't have to make those 1040 ES payments. And most, it's a rare occasion that I find someone that when they understand it, won't do that for their nanny.
Okay. Or they can just come to Homework Solutions and call it a day and say,
just give them my phone number.
Here you go. You work it out. Just send me the bill.
Yes.
Simple. I promise you, I go to my interviews with a resource page that says, okay, so if you want nanny taxes, if you want a payroll, if you want, just whatever the case may be, here is my resource page. Mm-hmm. So that because I work for a lot of first-time family, first-time parents, and they have no clue. And when I go to even if they don't hire me, I still want to educate them. So I go with, here's the number, here's the website, look it up. It makes it so simple for them to make a phone call or look it up on the website because it's not like they don't have a lot of other things to do besides taking care of their baby, but it gives them a place to start. It gives them a place, a trusted place to start, so that they don't have to go searching the internet and guessing, well, I don't know, this may be, maybe not. So I suggest to all you nannies that you make you a resource page. And when you go for those interviews, take that resource page with you. Just like you have a list of references, have a list of resources to help the family. And I know you're saying, well, I don't want to give them all that information and they don't hire me. Well, you are helping your sister that's coming behind you.
Yes, you are.
Before you to, so that they won't have a hard time when it comes to those parents. They've already been introduced and says, okay, well, you're going to take the taxes out. Well, you're going to have to do this. You got to do payroll. Just give it up to them and make it simple and easy for yourself. Parents are looking for easier ways to get out of doing stuff that they don't have to do, especially when they have no clue what they're doing with their baby. That's stressful enough. You're there to help them with that baby and guide them in the right direction. Well, continue to guide them in the right direction by giving them some resources. Yeah. And it is not going to kill you to be kind. I promise you, you reap what you sow. So if you're kind to someone else, it comes back to you. I promise you. But if you have the attitude of, I ain't doing it, it's going to come back to you. Somebody going to look at you and say, I ain't doing that. I'm just saying.
As a mother of twins and a 2.5-year-old when the twins were born, I have 3 altogether. I will tell you that had I not been in the industry that I'm in and known nothing about it, I would have been so thankful to that nanny for providing me a list of resources, because you're just surviving most days at that point with that newborn or multiple children or whatever your scenario might be. That nanny is always going to stand out in your head. I am your personal handout guru for taxes. By all means, send a client that you are considering working for to me with a question, you don't have to know all of this because you know someone that does. You know us, and
Connections.
we'll do it for you. We'll have that conversation for them. And to boot, we'll give you $50 if they sign up with us. So it's a win for everyone involved. But yeah, we don't expect everyone to have taken down every note on this. You don't have to. Just, we do free consultations for everyone, both our nannies and our families. Call me up, ask me what you need to ask me to email you a resource. I'll do it. Send your family and say, I don't know. I know we need to do this tax thing. I don't do taxes. I do children. I'm really good at that. Call these people. They're really good at that. By all means, absolutely. We are your people.
Yes. And that $50 can buy a lot of coffee.
I'm telling you.
Nannies, I promise you, we should own stock in Starbucks.
I know. It's a $50 Amazon card. What can you not get on Amazon that you need?
And Amazon, you can use that card to buy a Starbucks card.
I know. I survived the twins through Amazon Mom. The diapers and the formula just came, and my nanny and I were so grateful every time the box showed up, and we were like, ooh, we don't have to try to take the twins to Target. Yeah, it was great.
Yay. Yes, and see, twins are my specialty, so I know how you felt when it comes to what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do now? What comes next? And then the lack of sleep and trying to breastfeed and trying to just keep your sanity. Yes, please give your parents some resources. I know as a newborn care specialist, I give out, here's the number for 2 or 3 of my best people that I know that I have worked with, that are postpartum doulas. Is lactation, IBCLC. I'm a lactation educator, but I can only take you so far. So let me tell you how you get to the next point. Here you go. So give them resources that they can use, that they can call, and just, so it gives them peace of mind. Peace of mind is worth millions. It's priceless.
Oh, it is.
It's priceless. If they don't have to take extra steps to get to the next, and what am I supposed to do next? And what am I supposed to do next? You give them their resource page, and you have it listed. Okay, these are postpartum doulas. These are places you can shop. These are the places you get discounts. This is where Babyland is, and the best time to take them there, and so you can, the mom's day out, so you can get a break. Whatever the case may be, take them with you. Make you a resource page. I promise you, it will make you seem professional. It will make you stand out amongst all of your peers. It will make you be that mom be like, oh, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for sending her my way. I promise you, I've done that. And most of the moms that I have given those resource pages to have hired me. And some of them said, well, I can't afford your price, but can you come every once in a while? Do you do every once? I may be able to afford you. They want you, even if they can't afford you, they're going to figure out a way to get you in their life, even if it's just a consultation. Can you come and sit down and talk to me? Sometimes moms just need somebody to talk to. So that being said, do you have closing remarks?
All I would say is that the work that I did as a nanny is what started me 15 years ago in this industry. And as you can see, I have refused to leave because I love this industry. And my nannies are the reason I sit here alive today, because they were an invaluable resource to me. Even as a nanny, I was a trained nanny, and still I had these beautiful women come into my lives that showed me other perspectives and other tricks. And I learned so much every day from the nannies we work with. And that's what's so rewarding about providing educational resources on taxes and HR and retirement and mileage reimbursement and whatever it is back to them, is I feel like I'm giving a small amount of the things that they have given me back to our community. Just like you said, You're paying it forward for your sister in arms who's coming behind you or who was in front of you. And as an industry, Jay, our president, always says the rising tide lifts all ships. And it couldn't be more true. When we all, hold hands and rise together, everybody goes together. We all rise together.
That's right. Each one, reach one, teach one. That's what I always say. But thank you so much. And you just gave me an idea, and I'll talk to you about it, about retirement, because that's one thing that we need too, because we don't think about that. We work and work and work and work until we break our back, our hips out of place. And I personally know this because I got hit by a car and the doctor said, you have degenerative scoliosis. I said, what? He said, you carry those babies on your left side. I said, how do you know that? He said, by this little curve that's going around in your spine. I was like, okay. So
yeah,
I'm just saying, you cannot be a nanny forever.
You've done good work. You deserve to retire at some point.
You deserve to retire. And Social Security that you have not paid in, you cannot live off of $400 a month. Because if you don't pay in, that's all you're gonna get.
Oh, we'll do a whole nother one on retirement.
Yes.
And ladies, if you can't wait that long, just drop me an email. We'll get you what you need.
Yes. Thank you so much.
And gentlemen, I shouldn't say ladies. We have such wonderful nannies in our community too. I apologize, gentlemen.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen who are in this field with us, the village.
Yes.
Like I call it. Thank you all. Thank you, Village, for tuning in tonight. Thank you, Rachel, for sharing some tax information with us. I tried to hit the scenarios that I didn't ask Kathy last year because she laid it on me. It's like, okay. So I tried to come up with some new questions this year because a lot of the ladies that watched last year are watching this year. So I tried to come up with some new scenarios and things that I have seen recently online so that I could ask and get some clarification for those who are watching. If you are watching, please share this with your groups, with your mom's groups, with your nanny groups, in whatever group you're in. Please share this video. And by all means, please support Home Work Solutions. Please. Rachel is there to answer your questions. Even the questions that you wanted to ask and were afraid to ask. No question is too stupid. I learned my lesson on that one. No question is too stupid. Ask your questions. Ask your questions. Ask your questions. And because I guarantee you, if you're asking the question, somebody else wanted to know, and they were afraid to ask too. So you can help someone else by asking those questions. That's why my questions may have sounded stupid and redundant, but I know if you come at a question one way, somebody may not understand it, but if you come at it another way, they get it. So as a teacher and a nanny, that's just who I am. That's what I do. But thank you so much. And next week, we are going to have a special guest, Miss Shannon is going to tell us about, we're titling it The Hunt. So be back here next week and learn about The Hunt. And thank you again, Rachel. And thank you, Kathy, for recommending Rachel. And we love you all. Please support them. Share with like I said, share with your group, share with your parents, share with this set of parents you have now, and the next set that you get, and the next set, and the next set, because we want to show our love for those who come and educate us. All righty, and we will see you all next week. Oh, I almost forgot. Thursday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time and 4 p.m. was it GMT, General Mountain Time? Is that what it is called? Anyway, we're going to have the parenting guru here. Miss Sue Atkins will be here on Thursday morning. I know it's early and some of you will be at work, but we're going to put it on Facebook Live so you can come back and watch the replay. The title of that one is, it's a special Ask the Nanny. The title is What Happens When the Child Prefers the Nanny Over the Parents. This has happened to me several times and it's hard. So we're going to talk to a parenting guru who is going to let us know, give us some tips on how to include the mom and the dad, how to, ease the child away from us. And, here you go, here's your baby. And, because babies prefer who they prefer because you spend so much time with them. But that's Thursday morning, this Thursday morning, January the 30th at 10 a.m. right here on my page. So I will see you then.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Billy.